6 dikuatiri lemas, 2 cedera manakala 9 lagi selamat selepas terperangkap akibat tragedi kepala air di lembah Maksina Makuau dekat Lahad Datu. Jenayah komersial di Malaysia menyaksikan peningkatan sehingga 95.2% dalam tempoh 5 tahun, kata Pengarah Jabatan Siasatan Jenayah Komersial, Datuk Seri Ramli Muhammad Yusof. Fasa pertama bantuan rakyat Malaysia kepada penduduk Gaza dengan keseluruhan 100 kontena melibatkan barangan keperluan asas bernilai 12 juta ringgit bermula pada Isnin. Ikuti liputan berita dan analisis menyeluruh setiap hari di saluran 501 dan Astro awani.com.
Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Anda sedang menyaksikan Niaga Awani bersama saya Nina Rozman. Seperti biasa jam ini kami akan bawakan pelbagai rangkuman berita niaga ekonomi dari tempatan hingga ke antarabangsa bersama ahli panel jemputan selama 1 jam 30 minit. Dan kita akan mulakan dengan laporan ringgit terlebih dahulu, di mana ia dijangka diniagakan secara berhati-hati berbanding dolar Amerika Syarikat dalam masa terdekat. Berikutan pelabur terus memantau dengan teliti kemajuan ekonomi tempatan dan global pada masa depan. Ketua Ahli Ekonomi Bank Muamalat Malaysia Berhad Dr. Muhammad Afzal Nizam Abdul Rashid berkata, antara yang diperhatikan berkaitan pengerusi Rizab Persekutuan Fed Amerika Syarikat Jerome Powell yang jelas menyatakan bahawa kenaikan kadar bukan sebahagian daripada senario garis dasar Bank Pusat itu walaupun ia masih bimbang dengan kadar inflasi. Tambahnya, satu peristiwa penting minggu ini ialah mesyuarat jawatan kuasa Dasar Monetary Bank Negara Malaysia pada 9 Mei terutamanya mengenai penilaian terhadap perubahan dasar baru-baru ini dan prospek inflasi. Selain itu, siri indeks pengurus pembelian, keputusan kadar faedah Reserve Bank of Australia dan data perdagangan China yang akan dikeluarkan minggu ini. Sehubungan itu, ringgit sepatutnya kekal sekitar RM4.73 hingga RM4.74 bagi setiap dolar Amerika Syarikat minggu ini. Pada asas Jumaat ke Jumaat, ringgit mengukuh kepada 4.7370 berbanding dolar Amerika Syarikat daripada 4.7650 seminggu sebelumnya. Sementara itu, ringgit diniagakan bercampur-campur berbanding mata wang ASEAN. Kontrak niaga hadapan minyak sawit mentah MSM di Bursa Malaysia derivatif dijangka diniagakan pada kecenderungan meningkat menjelang data tanaman utama dikeluarkan minggu ini. Peniaga minyak sawit David Ng berkata, peserta pasaran akan memantau laporan bulanan daripada Lembaga Minyak Sawit Malaysia MPOB untuk April yang dijadual dikeluarkan pada Jumaat akan datang. David Ng berpendapat apa yang akan dilihat oleh pasaran ialah laporan MPOB yang positif dengan para stok dijangka rendah untuk tempoh sebulan lagi. Oleh itu, mereka menjangkakan harga berada antara RM3,800 dan RM3,980 satu tan minggu ini. Sebaliknya, peniaga minyak sawit kanan Interbank Group of Companies Jim Teh berkata, niaga hadapan MSM dijangka diniagakan dalam sentimen turun naik minggu depan berikutan bekalan minyak sawit yang mencukupi di Malaysia dan Indonesia. Katanya, permintaan untuk komoditi itu dijangka dari negara-negara di Timur Tengah, China, India, Pakistan dan Kesatuan Eropah. Sementara itu, Ketua Penyelidikan Komoditi Sunwind Group yang berpangkalan di Mumbai Anil Kumar Bagani berkata jumlah ekspor minyak sawit Malaysia pada April menunjukkan penurunan bulan ke bulan. Intertek Testing Services menganggarkan ekspor minyak sawit sebanyak 1.21 juta tan merosot 8.97% daripada anggaran pada Mac, manakala MSpec Agri Malaysia mengunjurkannya sebanyak 1.14 juta tan susut 11.46%. Data Persatuan Pengilang-Pengilang Kelapa Sawit Semenanjung Selatan pada April menunjukkan pengeluaran minyak sawit meningkat sebanyak 3.76% pada asas bulan ke bulan. Pasaran kini sedang menunggu anggaran pengeluaran minyak sawit pada April daripada UOB Keihan dan Persatuan Minyak Sawit Malaysia menjelang laporan tanaman MPOB pada April, katanya. Bagi minggu baru berakhir, pasaran kebanyakannya tinggi berikutan permintaan kukuh dari India. Pada asas mingguan, kontrak bulan semasa Mei 2024 merosot RM41 kepada RM389 satu tan, Jun 2024 dan Julai 2024 masing-masing berkurangan RM52 kepada RM3,870 dan RM3,844 satu tan. Bursa Malaysia dijangka diniagakan dalam jajaran kecil dengan kecenderungan meningkat dalam Julai 1575 hingga 1600 minggu ini. Naib Presiden Pendidikan Ekuiti Rakuten Trade Sedang Berhad Tong Pak Ling berkata, FBM KLCI meneruskan aliran meningkatnya minggu lepas disokong oleh minat belian dalam saham wajaran tinggi. Tambahnya, dengan trajektori meningkat EMA 20 hari, ini menunjukkan indeks petunjuk pasaran masih berada dalam fasa konsolidasi dengan kecenderungan positif. Sementara itu, Ketua Penyelidikan dan Penasihat Kekayaan serta pengurus portfolio bertauliah di UOB Kehian Wealth Advisor, Muhammad Siddiq Jantan berkata, prestasi Apple dan Qualcomm yang meningkat di Wall Street baru-baru ini dengan pelaburan terbesar Microsoft di Malaysia dijangka mengukuhkan sektor teknologi di bursa tempatan. Berdasarkan momentum ini, katanya indeks FBM KLCI dijangka berada antara 1,570 dan 1,620 pada minggu akan datang. Pada aliran meningkat, paras halangan dijangka pada sekitar paras 1,600 dengan cabaran tambahan dijangka pada paras ambang 1,620. Pada asas Jumaat ke Jumaat, FBM KLCI naik 14.43 mata kepada 1,589.59 daripada 1,575.16 minggu lepas. Selepas ditangguhkan beberapa kali dan lebih 12 tahun, tiada kenaikan secara formal. Pengumuman kenaikan gaji penjawat awam lebih 13% yang dibuat Perdana Menteri Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim pada Hari Pekerja pasti disambut meriah lebih 1.7 juta kaki tangan awam. Namun, bagaimana langkah ini dapat merangsang pertumbuhan serta mempengaruhi kestabilan ekonomi negara? Kita mempersilakan tetamu kita untuk mengulas lebih lanjut adalah Dr. Muhammad Afzal Nizam Abdul Rashid merupakan Ketua Ekonomi Bank Muamalat Malaysia Berhad. Saya nak ucapkan terima kasih, Doktor. Doktor, pertama sekali kenaikan gaji awam dijangka akan menjadikan pekerja lebih bermotivasi, perkhidmatan yang lebih berkualiti dan dijangka akan meningkatkan lagi produktiviti organisasi tersebut. Jadi bagaimana kenaikan gaji ini dapat memberi ketulusan, keadilan kepada sistem gaji negara ketika ini serta mempengaruhi kestabilan ekonomi negara?
Terima kasih, Nina. Saya melihat impak dari segi pengumuman yang dibuat oleh pihak kerajaan berkenaan dengan pelarasan gaji di kalangan kalangan awam. Kalau kita melihat faktor sejarah ya pada tahun 2012 yang mana itu kali terakhir di mana pelarasan gaji dilaksanakan, kita melihat perbelanjaan di kalangan ataupun perbelanjaan swasta, private consumption, meningkat agak dalam kadar yang tinggi ya, daripada 6.9% pada tahun 2011 kepada 8.3% pada tahun 2012 lah. Dan saya melihat situasi yang sama juga pada tahun 2007 yang mana tahun itu juga dilaksanakan pelarasan gaji. Consumer spending meningkat daripada 6.6% pada tahun 2006 kepada 10.4%. Di sini apa yang saya dapat rumuskan adalah pengumuman kenaikan gaji di kalangan awam ini jangka memberi kesan yang positif. Cuma kita masih tidak tahulah bagaimana kesannya kepada pihak swasta, yang mana kita sedia maklum suasana ekonomi masih lagi mencabar. Dan saya melihat juga angka seperti indeks sentimen para pengguna ataupun consumer sentiment index. Kalau tahun 2012 puratanya adalah lebih 100 mata, iaitu 116 mata. Kemudian pada tahun 2007 puratanya adalah 117 mata. Berbanding sekarang pada tahun 2023 puratanya ada 90 mata di bawah paras 100 mata. Ini menunjukkan bahawa sentimen di kalangan pengguna buat masa ini begitu berhati-hati dan kita tidak pastilah bagaimana ini akan diterjemahkan dari segi perbelanjaan lah. Apa yang pasti apabila para pengguna itu begitu berhati-hati, maka mungkin dari segi trend perbelanjaannya itu juga akan bersifat dalam keadaan yang sederhana. Jadi walaupun kita menjangkakan impak yang positif, namun mungkin dinamik yang kita alami buat masa ini berbeza, terutamanya apabila kita berhadapan dengan situasi kenaikan kos sara hidup. Dan sini ia memerlukan suatu bentuk jajaran yang penting dari segi bagaimana pelaksanaan rasionalisasi subsidi administrasi minyak dan sebagainya perlu dilaksanakan dan memastikan pada yang sesama pihak kerajaan kekal mempunyai kedudukan kewangan yang mampan untuk memastikan setiap apa jua dasar yang dilaksanakan dapat dilaksanakan dalam keadaan yang selesa dari segi kewangan, terutama dalam hal ini berkenaan dengan pelaksanaan gaji di kalangan kaki tangan awam.
Dan Dr. PM juga menyeru untuk sektor swasta turut melakukan langkah yang sama. Adakah usaha ini akan meningkatkan inflasi di pasaran disebabkan kos operasi yang akan meningkat? Bagaimana?
Betul. Saya melihat kalau di kalangan pihak swasta, mereka mempunyai orang kata tu sela masa yang agak konsisten bagaimana mereka mahu melaksanakan apa yang dikatakan sebagai pelarasan gaji, mungkin dari segi setiap 3 tahun, 5 tahun dan sebagainya. Kerana pihak swasta juga mempunyai orang kata tu suatu motivasi untuk setidak-tidaknya retain the talent lah, ataupun mengekalkan talent yang sedia ada, dan pada masa samanya juga cuba untuk menarik perhatian talent-talent yang terbaik di luar sana. Jadi pertimbangan ini juga berbentuk komersial, dan pelarasan gaji sudah pasti dapat membantu dalam orang kata tu menarik minat untuk bekerja di pihak swasta. Dan saya percaya dengan adanya pelarasan gaji di kalangan penjawat awam ni, mungkin dia akan mencetus suatu orang kata tu idea di kalangan pihak swasta untuk menjalankan apa yang dikatakan sebagai pelarasan gaji. Namun ianya bersifat komersial, tiada paksaan dan sebagainya, bergantung kepada kedudukan kewangan bagi sebuah organisasi tersebut.
Dan kita nak lihat juga peningkatan gaji penjawat awam ni berbanding dengan pertumbuhan ataupun hasil ekonomi negara ketika ini. Apakah antara impak langsung kenaikan gaji penjawat awam terhadap bajet ataupun belanjawan kerajaan?
Okey, saya melihat dari segi produktiviti, dan mungkin dengan kenaikan gaji juga, orang kata tu boleh bagi suatu bentuk moral booster lah di kalangan para penjawat awam, dan mempunyai moral yang tinggi sudah pasti, ataupun motivasi yang tinggi sudah pasti akan membantu dalam meningkatkan kelancaran operasi kerajaan, terutamanya yang melibatkan interface dengan di kalangan pihak swasta, baik di peringkat individu maupun di peringkat perniagaan. Jadi kenaikan gaji, pelarasan gaji sudah pasti akan meningkatkan motivasi di kalangan penjawat awam, dan ini sudah pasti akan melancarkan dan akan meningkatkan produktiviti negara, kerana mungkin kelancaran dalam sesuatu operasi perniagaan itu dapat disempurnakan dengan lebih baik lagi, dan ini akan memberi keuntungan kepada semua pihak di dalam sebuah ekonomi tersebut.
Dan sudah tentu kita lihat kenaikan ini memberi dorongan kepada pekerja dalam kalangan penjawat awam, termasuk juga dengan agensi organisasi kerajaan itu. Jadi kita nak lihat juga apakah selain daripada kenaikan inflasi disebabkan kos operasi yang lebih tinggi daripada pelaksanaan ini, apakah antara risiko-risiko besar yang mungkin timbul daripada pelaksanaan ini, Doktor?
Saya melihat risiko utama adalah bagaimana pihak kerajaan cuba menampung kenaikan yang dijangka, iaitu sekitar 10 bilion hasil daripada pelarasan yang kita bakal laksanakan pada tahun Disember dan tahun depan lah. Dan apa yang kita sering dengar adalah dari segi rasionalisasi subsidi sebagai suatu elemen ataupun unsur utama bagi memungkinkan pihak kerajaan mempunyai suatu ruang dasar untuk orang kata tu membolehkan kerajaan untuk berbelanja dengan lebih baik lagi. Dan di sini saya rasa satu risiko yang perlu ditangani dengan lebih baik lagi, terutama dari segi komunikasi, kerana apabila berlaku pelarasan dalam sesebuah dasar pengenaan subsidi, terutamanya subsidi minyak, kemungkinan untuk ianya memberi kesan pada impak inflasi memang ada, dan selain itu dia akan menimbulkan rasa kurang senang, rasa ataupun sentimen yang lemah dan sebagainya. Ini juga perlu ditangan dengan bijak lah, dan saya percaya dengan adanya program ataupun komunikasi yang jelas, saya pasti expectation ataupun jangkaan ini dapat diurus dengan lebih baik supaya ia dapat menghasilkan suatu bentuk tindak balas yang positif di kalangan para peniaga dan juga di kalangan para pengguna.
Dan Doktor, bergerak ke hadapan, kita tak nak apabila sudah melaksanakan kenaikan gaji ini mungkin yang akan dilaksanakan Disember depan, bagaimana untuk kita pastikan iaitu apabila naik gaji, ekspektasi atau berjangka orang ramai, okeylah tak naklah gaji dah naik tapi perkhidmatan ataupun servis yang dapat bukannya lebih baik tapi tetap sama, dan PM juga ada berkata bahawa iaitu tidak semua penjawat awam akan layak menerima ini. Jadi bagaimana untuk setiap organisasi ataupun kita boleh lihat daripada dasar polisi untuk menetapkan kriteria-kriteria bahawa mereka layak untuk dapat kenaikan gaji?
Okey, mungkin di sini saya percaya sistem saraan ataupun bagaimana pihak kerajaan menilai para pekerjanya juga memainkan peranan yang penting. Apa yang kita mahu capai adalah suatu budaya yang berasaskan prestasi tinggi ataupun kita katakan sebagai high performance culture. Kerana kita tidak mahu sudah pasti yang di kalangan para penjawat yang mempunyai motivasi yang tinggi, mempunyai prestasi cemerlang, tidak diganggu oleh orang kata tu sifat seperti moral hazard, yang mana mereka yang tidak berprestasi tinggi ini juga mendapat reward ataupun manfaat yang sama bagi mereka, seolah sama dengan mereka yang bekerja dengan lebih rajin. Dan di sini saya melihat pelarasan gaji ni mungkin bukanlah semata-mata pelarasan gaji, mungkin melibatkan bagaimana pihak kerajaan menilai ataupun buat satu appraisal kepada prestasi para pekerja supaya budaya berprestasi tinggi dapat diterapkan dan akhirnya akan mencapai suatu bentuk produktiviti yang tinggi dan perbelanjaan kerajaan itu lebih orang kata tu value for money, tidak orang kata tu menghadapi suatu bentuk pembaziran, kerana sudah pasti kalau berbelanja kepada mereka yang tidak berprestasi tinggi ini akan melibatkan suatu, boleh katakan satu bentuk ketirisan lah dalam satu sudut yang boleh kita tengok.
Dan pelarasan subsidi seperti doktor sebutkan tadi jelas akan berimpak kepada inflasi. Apa lagi cara oleh kerajaan untuk tingkatkan hasil? Lebih banyak cukai ke? Bagaimana doktor?
Usaha untuk mengkonsolidasikan fiskal ni memang usaha berterusan, kerana kita sering memang kata tu saban tahun mencatat suatu bentuk defisit. Dan defisit ini perlu dikawal supaya hutang kerajaan juga terkawal, dan sasaran yang ingin dicapai mungkin sekitar 3% daripada nilai KDNK. Saya rasa ini satu usaha berterusan dan dasar subsidi bukan hanya tertumpu kepada subsidi saja, juga kepada orang kata tu cukai yang lebih cekap dan sebagainya, dan juga pentadbiran yang lebih orang kata tu telus yang juga akan mengurangkan karenah birokrasi, mungkin juga akan dapat mengatasi masalah corruption dan sebagainya, kerana itu juga orang kata tu boleh membazirkan sumber kerajaan. Jadi satu bentuk langkah ataupun pendekatan yang holistik dalam memastikan defisit kerajaan ini, defisit fiskal dapat dikurangkan dalam keadaan yang selesa dan tidak mewujudkan satu bentuk kejutan pula kepada ekonomi negara.
Dan doktor, akhir sekali berbakikan seminit sahaja lagi, mungkin doktor boleh kongsikan bagaimanakah iaitu best practices yang diamalkan oleh negara-negara lain, negara-negara jiran dalam melaksanakan iaitu kenaikan gaji kepada penjawat awam dengan lebih berkesan.
Saya rasa memang high performance culture ni mungkin boleh dikatakan suatu bentuk best practices lah, kerana apa-apa sahaja pun yang dibelanjakan kita mahu setiap individu yang bekerja dengan pihak sektor kerajaan ni akan menghasilkan suatu bentuk produktiviti yang tinggi, kerana dia akan memberi kesan limpahan pula kepada sektor-sektor lain, terutama di sektor swasta. Jadi saya rasa high performance culture ni perlu diterapkan dengan lebih jelas dan lebih tuntas lagi dalam sektor perkhidmatan awam ini.
Baik, itu dah antara beberapa impak dan kesan daripada langkah kenaikan gaji penjawat awam. Sekali lagi saya nak ucapkan terima kasih kepada Dr. Muhammad Azani Abdul Rashid, merupakan Ketua Ekonomi Bank Muamalat Malaysia Berhad, dan semua perbincangan ini akan kami rangkum dalam astroawani.com dan semua platform digital Astro Awani. Dan kita akan berhenti rehat seketika dan kembali selepas ini.
Liga Malaysia penuh gemilang. Musik baharu, azam baharu. Astro dengan sepenuh hati bakal membawakan lebih 200 perlawanan bertaraf antarabangsa secara langsung untuk anda. Wah, itu dia. Bukan sahaja di skrin besar, para peminat boleh stream sepenuhnya di mana jua. Dengan teknologi VAR, kualiti dipertingkatkan sepenuhnya. Pandit baharu penuh kredibiliti membawakan analisis lebih terperinci. Alami dan rasai Liga Malaysia sepenuhnya dengan edisi terkini Ultimate Liga Super Fantasy. Kini, para peminat Liga Malaysia pasti teruja dengan Astro. Sokonglah sepenuhnya demi Liga kita. Liga Malaysia secara langsung di Astro.
Terdapat sedikit kebimbangan berkaitan dengan peningkatan kos sara hidup dan juga bagaimana untuk orang ramai mengimbangi peningkatan kos itu dengan perbelanjaan hari raya nanti. Sepanjang bulan Ramadan nanti, cuaca dijangka panas kering sepanjang 30 hari berkenaan.
Peniaga makanan di bazar Ramadan dinasihatkan supaya jujur dalam menyediakan makanan, terutamanya dari sudut kualiti dan penjagaan makanan.
Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim is confident that the Malaysian economy will achieve stronger growth between 4 to 5% in 2024.
Among Palestine's top 2 officials were jointly charged with 161 counts of money laundering, criminal breach of trust and cheating.
Malaysia will experience drier and hotter weather due to prolonged lack of rain in the final phase of the northeast monsoon.
Baik, dalam pelaburan ESG matriks yang meliputi faktor alam sekitar dan tadbir urus adalah istilah yang digunakan oleh pelabur untuk menerangkan bidang yang bercirikan amalan kelestarian bertanggungjawab atau etika sesebuah syarikat. Ianya adalah seiring dengan inisiatif global seperti yang dibincangkan dalam Forum Ekonomi Dunia WEF yang menekankan keperluan tindakan iklim dan kewangan lestari. Di Malaysia, ESG bertujuan untuk mendorong pertumbuhan ekonomi dan kejayaan pelaburan jangka panjang sejajar dengan aspirasi ekonomi hijau negara. Dan sempena Minggu ESG, pasaran modal Malaysia yang akan berlangsung pada minggu depan, kita akan bincangkan bagaimana pelabur boleh menyepadukan ESG, pelaburan lestari dan pelaburan impak dalam strategi pelaburan mereka dan menghasilkan pulangan yang konsisten dalam portfolio pelaburan mereka. Dan sudah bersedia dalam talian untuk membantu kita faham bagaimanakah pelaburan ESG ini dapat memberi pulangan kewangan serta impak positif kepada masyarakat dan juga alam sekitar. Kita mempersilakan Cik Mohamed Siddiq Jantan merupakan Ketua Penyelidikan dan Penasihat Kekayaan Pengurus Portfolio UOB Kayhian Wealth Advisor. Saya nak ucapkan terima kasih Cik Siddiq kerana sudi meluangkan masa bersama kami. Pertama sekali, bagaimana permintaan dan prestasi pelaburan yang berasaskan kelestarian khususnya pada 2 tahun kebelakangan ini?
Okey Nina, dari segi permintaan di peringkat global, kita lihat jumlah aset di bawah pengurusan untuk aset yang berasaskan lestari ini dijangka akan terus meningkat dari 35 trilion pada tahun 2020 kepada 50 trilion pada tahun 2025. Dalam pada itu, PwC melaporkan rantau Asia memiliki pertumbuhan yang terpantas dalam AUM ESG dan ianya dijangka mencapai 3.3 trilion pada tahun 2026. So walaupun Malaysia mungkin belum menjadi yang terkemuka dalam menawarkan produk pelaburan berasaskan ESG dan juga lestari pada masa ini, akan tetapi saya melihat perkembangan yang sihat yang mana jauh lebih baik dibandingkan dengan banyak negara membangun di rantau Asia, terutamanya dalam bidang menyediakan panduan untuk sektor swasta mempromosikan pembiayaan dan juga pelaburan berasaskan ESG. Sebagai contoh, Security Commission dan juga Bank Negara telah menyediakan asas bagi pembangunan pembiayaan lestari dengan menjadi salah satu peneraju dalam rantau ini yang secara aktif menyokong pembangunan pembiayaan lestari melalui penumbuhan rangka kerja peraturan, panduan dan juga mempromosikan inisiatif lestari. So, pelabur tempatan juga dilihat lebih terbuka untuk berbincang dan mencari cara untuk mengintegrasikan prinsip ESG dalam membuat keputusan pelaburan. So jika kita skopkan kepada Malaysia, buat masa ini Bursa Malaysia terdapat 4 indeks berasaskan kelestarian ESG iaitu FTSE for Good Bursa Malaysia Index, FTSE Bursa Malaysia Syariah Index dan juga FTSE Bursa Malaysia Top 100 ESG Low Carbon Select Index dan juga FTSE Bursa Malaysia Top 100 ESG Low Carbon Select Syariah Index. So kita lihat di bursa ianya tidak hanya kepada konvensional tetapi juga kepada syariah index. So dari segi prestasi, saya ada sediakan sebuah grafik untuk untuk membuat pembandingan antara indeks berasaskan konvensional dan juga indeks berasaskan kelestarian. So ini setakat 30 April pada tahun ini dan kita boleh lihat pembandingan yang ini saya letakkan perbandingan di antara di Malaysia, Asia Pacific dan juga S&P 500. So jika kita lihat dalam sudut dalam aspek prestasi ianya tidak banyak perubahan, tapi jika kita lihat semasa krisis dan juga semasa pandemik, indeks yang berasaskan kelestarian jauh lebih yang saya boleh katakan lebih less volatile compare dengan indeks konvensional, Lina.
Dan terdapat beberapa pandangan yang menyatakan pelaburan ESG tidak memberi pulangan yang tinggi berbanding pelaburan tradisional. Bagaimana pandangan Siddiq terhadap perkara ini?
Okey, Ya, saya boleh katakan banyak kebanyakan daripada para pelabur dan juga ada di kalangan pengurus dana berbincang mengenai bagaimana prestasi pelaburan ESG ini semasa selepas pandemik. Sebab boleh kita katakan ia menjadi satu perdebatan di kalangan pakar-pakar ekonomi dan juga pakar penganalisis pelaburan. Walaupun beberapa laporan mencadangkan bahawa pelaburan ESG ini tidak berprestasi sebagaimana yang dijangka selepas pandemik, akan tetapi jika lihat daripada statistik risiko, nilai risikonya adalah sedikit lebih rendah berbanding pelaburan konvensional. Pada pandangan saya, kriteria ESG ini boleh disepadukan bersama strategi pelaburan lain seperti contoh menggabungkan kriteria ESG bersama strategi smart beta ataupun dynamic asset allocation. So kita tahu strategi alternatif seperti smart beta ataupun dynamic asset allocation ianya bertujuan untuk melebihi daripada indeks tradisional dengan memberikan penekanan terhadap faktor-faktor selain daripada capital market cap, kestabilan, liquidity dan juga kualiti. So bila kita gabungkan strategi konvensional, strategi yang biasa digunakan dalam pelaburan dengan kriteria ESG, kita dapat menyelaraskan portfolio tanpa mengabaikan matlamat pelaburan strategik. So terdapat kajian akademik juga yang saya boleh nyatakan di sini yang menunjukkan bahawa integrasi faktor-faktor ESG dalam portfolio tidak membahayakan prestasi, bahkan boleh memberi faedah dalam keadaan pasaran tertentu, khususnya semasa ketidakstabilan pasaran. So bagi menjawab soalan yang Nina katakan tadi, mengapa prestasi pelaburan ESG yang berbeza selepas pandemik, secara keseluruhan kita boleh lihat daripada beberapa faktor. Yang pertama, ketidakstabilan pasaran, iaitu pandemik menyebabkan ketidakstabilan pasaran yang signifikan yang boleh memberi kesan kepada semua jenis pelaburan termasuk dana ESG. Yang kedua, kita boleh lihat daripada prestasi sektor. Dana ESG biasanya mempunyai peratusan pegangan yang lebih tinggi dalam sektor teknologi dan juga kesihatan yang mana prestasinya lebih baik semasa pandemik. Walau bagaimanapun apabila ekonomi dibuka semula, terdapat rotasi ke sektor-sektor yang lebih sekular di mana ESG tidak mempunyai pegangan itu. So yang ketiga, saya boleh katakan tahap penilaian. Pelaburan ESG telah menyaksikan aliran masuk yang signifikan dan prestasi yang kukuh sebelum pandemik. So kita boleh lihat kebanyakannya akan wujud fasa koreksi ataupun konsolidasi semula selepas pandemik, dan pada masanya sama pelabur juga mungkin akan mengambil keputusan untuk mengambil keuntungan dan juga keluar daripada pelaburan itu. So apa yang saya perhatikan, syarikat-syarikat yang menjalankan amalan ESG yang kukuh lebih baik dalam mengendalikan cabaran dan peluang jangka panjang yang boleh membawa kepada prestasi yang lebih baik dari semasa ke semasa.
Dan kalau kita nak tambah dengan terma greenwashing, sering menjadi kontroversi dalam pelaburan ESG. Sidi, apa yang perlu diberi perhatian oleh pelabur untuk mengelakkan melabur dalam syarikat-syarikat yang terlibat dalam greenwashing ini?
Okey, greenwashing ni merupakan kebimbangan yang terbesar bagi pelabur, terutamanya dalam bidang pelaburan yang berasaskan ESG. Greenwashing ni dia merujuk kepada amalan membuat tuntutan palsu tentang manfaat alam sekitar, perkhidmatan ataupun amalan syarikat. Oleh itu, evolusi dalam ESG dapat mengurangkan risiko greenwashing. Secara ringkasnya, ESG berevolusi daripada ESG 4.0. Jika saya boleh nyatakan secara ringkas apa itu ESG 1.0 hingga 4.0, ESG 1.0 merupakan asas di mana faktor alam sekitar, sosial dan tadbir urus mula dikenal pasti kerana impaknya terhadap pelaburan. Itu yang asas. ESG 2.0 membawa dengan peraturan dan standard mula membentuk bagaimana syarikat-syarikat melaporkan dan bertindak berdasarkan kriteria ESG. ESG 3.0 menyaksikan pendekatan proaktif, memberi tumpuan kepada metrik masa depan dan pelaburan yang secara aktif mendorong penyelesaian alam sekitar. Dan akhir sekali, ESG 4.0 mewakili sepadan semasa, iaitu pada masa kini di mana ESG terjalin dengan rapat dalam
strategi pelaburan menekankan impak yang boleh diukur dan yang di sebalik tindakan korporat untuk memupuk kestabilan sejati. So dalam ESG 4.0 ini, ia yang mempromosikan transparansi, accountability dan amalan kelestarian yang boleh disahkan. So untuk 4.0 ini dapat mengekang greenwashing daripada berlaku. Apa yang kita lihat, terdapat laporan peningkatan, iaitu company-company yang menyatakan mereka melakukan ESG perlu meletakkan memberi laporan terperinci tentang usaha kelestarian mereka yang membantu mencegah syarikat membuat tuntutan yang kabur atau tidak disokong tentang impak alam sekitar dan sosial. Yang kedua, standard
metrik yang seragam. Artinya pada masa ini untuk ESG, untuk sesebuah company mendapat pengiktirafan ESG, mereka perlu berbincang ataupun mengambil konsultasi daripada ESG advisor, dan terdapat sedikit perbezaan antara standard ESG di Asia, Eropah dan juga di North America. So pada ESG 4.0 ini ianya akan menjadi keseragaman. Artinya semua negara ataupun semua company akan menggunakan standard yang sama. So yang last sekali, dia ESG 4.0 ini dia menggunakan pengesahan third party yang tidak ada apa-apa faedah daripada syarikat itu, dan mereka bebas untuk tentukan sama ada ESG yang digunakan oleh syarikat tersebut menambah kualiti ataupun tidak, dan ianya menambah kredibiliti dalam laporan kelestarian yang mengalang greenwashing ini. So yang saya boleh katakan ESG 4.0 iaitu ianya bermula pada tahun lepas merupakan salah satu alat untuk mengurangkan ataupun untuk mengelak daripada kemungkinan-kemungkinan syarikat-syarikat melakukan greenwashing ini.
Tadi pada awal Sidi ada kongsikan iaitu bagaimanakah prestasi ataupun situasi semasa iaitu pelaburan yang berasaskan ESG kelestarian dalam tempoh 2 tahun sejak kebelakangan ini. Bagaimana untuk tempoh 2 tahun yang akan datang? Bagaimanakah unjuran Sidi terhadap trend dan prospek pelaburan ESG ini melihat kepada iaitu antara inisiatif-inisiatif domestik yang sedang berlangsung ketika ini?
Okey, jika kita lihat untuk prestasi FBM-KSCI ataupun prestasi semasa ESG berbanding dengan prestasi konvensional, ianya ada sedikit perubahan, iaitu kita boleh lihat pada tahun 2022 kebanyakan 2023 kebanyakan daripada indeks ESG menunjukkan perubahan signifikan berbanding indeks daripada konvensional tradisional yang sedia ada. So untuk unjuran yang 2 tahun yang akan datang, kita lihat ia akan berlaku hampir sama semasa sebelum pandemik COVID-19, iaitu pada tahun 2017, 2018 dan juga 2019 kita melihat kebanyakan daripada company ataupun indeks-indeks ataupun unit amanah yang berasaskan ESG ini mempunyai prestasi yang jauh lebih baik berbanding daripada prestasi indeks-indeks tradisional. So kita boleh, saya boleh unjukkan secara generalnya terdapat perubahan yang signifikan berbanding daripada tahun 2023-2024 iaitu tahun sekarang ini. So untuk 2 tahun saya boleh katakan kebanyakan pelaburan yang berasaskan ESG mungkin mempunyai sekiranya inflasi ataupun tiada krisis yang berlaku, ianya mungkin memberi sedikit pertumbuhan memberi pertumbuhan yang signifikan kepada pelaburan yang ada yang dipegang oleh pelabur.
Baik, saya nak ucapkan terima kasih Muhammad Siddiq Jantan, Ketua Pendidikan dan Penasihat Kekayaan Pengurus Portfolio UOB Kehian Wealth Advisor, dan semua perkongsian ini akan kami rangkumkan dalam astroawani.com, dan selepas ini kami akan bawakan iaitu tumpuan utama dalam Forum Ekonomi Dunia WEF selepas ini.
The notion of middle powers has existed for a long time. Is the in-between, I would say. You know, you have the big powers, and somewhere in the middle you have these governments, these countries that represent an important part of the geopolitics, but don't have enough power on their own to be competing to be the big ones.
One of the challenges we face is that all of the major institutions that we have for proposing solutions or solving problems are increasingly sort of stuck in this geopolitical tension. The role of a sort of semi-trusted or reasonably trusted actor or a third party can be very important in proposing solutions and in generating sort of common action, even with this very deep distrust that we have now. We thought it might be worth exploring a mechanism where the constructive major and middle powers, the Japans, the Brazils, the Canadas, the Australias, etc., could come together to see about proposing solutions to kind of concert their efforts. The pace of geopolitical deterioration is not being matched by the scale of innovation on the middle powers. We're sort of trying to put our fingers on the scale here a little bit and see if we can't generate some more innovation, some more leadership, some more engagement by these countries who have such a huge stake in a stable international system, such a huge stake in the continuation of the multilateral system, which are both under very serious pressure.
I think there is an opportunity with Ukraine. Ukraine needs some sort of thinking out of the box. And we are stuck there. It's a very dangerous situation. I think there is an opportunity for some of the middle powers that we have mentioned to come up with options that could start a different conversation, or a conversation, not even a different conversation, on how to at least stop the disaster that is taking place. Water is one of the highest points of potential conflict in the future because of what is going to be the lack of water in most parts of the world due to climate change. This could bring together some very unusual middle powers associated to try to find proposals on how to tackle this question.
Our best bet is for the middle and major powers to take on this role as advocates for multilateralism, as channels for conflict management and de-escalation. If we see them take on this role, then the prospects of sort of stumbling through the next few years without major disaster go up, and if they don't, they go down.
what we need to understand is the principal mechanism by which climate change will be felt by people is through more severe extreme weather, more severe and more frequent extreme weather. It's not that the world is just going to get incrementally slightly hotter. We'll experience these extreme events first. And this is largely driven by the water cycle, but lots of other processes as well. So what you see is that places that are already dry tend to get drier until it flips and then they get inundated. And places that are already wet tend to get significantly wetter until it flips and they get a drought. So you get these extremes, high intensity and volatility, as lots of different systems, physical systems, are impacted by warmer air, and these interact in ways that we aren't necessarily able to fully predict yet, at least over beyond more than a few days. What Dubai saw is emblematic of what we will continue to see in various places around the world. And in fact, what we have been seeing over the last several years, from the flash flooding in Libya last year, to what we saw in Pakistan, to what we saw in Europe last summer, to what we've seen in China. It's happening again and again and again, and will continue to happen. First thing is we need to have systems in place to warn people when such events are coming. The second thing is we need to protect people from these events. And that means plans. Do people know where to go for shelter? Do governments understand where the vulnerable are? And the third thing is to strengthen systems. Many of our critical infrastructures, from transportation to water to food, were built with a different set of climactic circumstances in mind. And they need to be upgraded for the increased likelihood of these kinds of events. And that requires a lot of money, but also a lot of innovation.
kerjasama lebih erat untuk bagaimana memperkuat ASEAN. ASEAN sekarang kan di crossroad, jadi Indonesia dan Malaysia bisa menjadi pilar untuk memperkuat kesatuan dari ASEAN.
So we see a tremendous future for hydrogen to be a part of the decarbonization of the planet. At this point of time, Malaysia and India, and where we have been sort of focusing on developing projects.
Perubahan iklim, ancaman kepada semua. Pencemaran meracuni planet kita.
How is it affecting our...
Merobek khazanah alam, membahayakan kita.
We can avert the worst effects of climate change.
Kita mampu mengubahnya. Selamatkan bumi, selamatkan nyawa. Penanaman demi masa depan untuk semua. Rimba kita, selamatkan bumi kita. Stream bila-bila masa, di mana jua. Semuanya di satu tempat.
Hello and welcome to Niaga Spotlight. Me, Nina Rozman. Niaga Spotlight goes through the week in business and future affairs, market watch, industries, analysis and insights. We've got you covered right here on Niaga Spotlight. Well, this week on analysis, we're looking at Labor Day 2024, focusing on the global theme, which is social justice and decent work for all. Now, in Malaysia, the demand is for more equitable pay as the current minimum wage is insufficient to provide a decent standard of living. On one hand, the progressive wage policy, under which employers would gradually increase pay for their workers based on their skills, experience and performance, will start soon in June 2024 and involve 1,000 companies in a pilot project. Meanwhile, the government is being called upon to set a new minimum wage this year of 2,000 ringgit per month, as the current minimum wage of 1,500 per month is low compared to the actual cost of living. Department of Statistics Malaysia DOSM stats show that 35% of formal sector employees in Malaysia, that is over 2.2 million individuals, earn well below 2,000 ringgit per month as of March 2023. DOSM also reported that in 2022, women on average made a total income of only 42,080 ringgit per year compared to men at 63,117 ringgit. In other words, for every 100 ringgit in salaries and wages received by men, women only receive 66.67 ringgit. This is also a significant leap in figures from the year before and must come under scrutiny for Labor Day to better determine the gender representation of low earners. Well, all that said and done, Xavier Estupinan, Regional Wage Specialist with the Decent Work Team for Asia and the Pacific for International Labour Organization ILO, joins us now from Bangkok to share some insights on progressive wage policy and living wages. Good morning, Xavier. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Tamina. I'm very good. Still commemorating Labor Day in the search of decent work and advancing in social justice, yes.
Absolutely. So thanks so much for making time to join us for this very timely conversation. Xavier, now may I ask you, to what extent can the voluntary progressive wage policy, the PWP, positively impact Malaysian workers and the economy, more broadly speaking?
Thank you, Tamina. Very, very important question, and the background that you gave was very relevant to this context. Overall, the progressive wage policy in Malaysia has the potential to positively impact workers by raising wages, improving productivity, and promoting economic growth. These are critical elements in the equation of sustainable growth that has been rightly addressed in this policy paper. However, successful implementation will require careful monitoring and continuous social dialogue among employers and workers' representatives to address specific challenges from the inception phase, as rightly said, in June 2024 is going to be deployed, until September 2024, where it's meant to have a wider connotation. There are several trade-offs that we see in the policy. I'd like to mention a few. While reviewing or remaining as a voluntary scheme, opting companies into the system, this could obviously foster ownership and commitment among participant employers. However, this may also create a natural selection for higher productivity firms or sectors to enter the system. On the other hand, we have offering financial incentives to participating firms. The progressive wage policy encourages the increase of wages while also focusing on productivity improvements, meaning a skill enhancement, maybe technology adoption, which not only benefits worker by potentially increasing the wage earning capacity, but also contributing to economic growth. So this aspect actually recognizes how crucial a driver are promoting productivity gains for increasing wages. This is a very important linkage. Also, the progressive wage policy mechanism, including the suggested annual salary increases by sector and occupation and incentives, aim to ensure fairness and transparency in the wage setting processes. Here, and based on ILO principles, the use of information statistics will be critical to provide clearer guidelines to promote more equitable distribution of economic growth. And while the progressive wage policy does not explicitly address a tripartite social dialogue for the design and implementation, I suppose its development likely involved consultation with various stakeholders, including government agencies, employers and worker representatives. This participating approach should foster and should ensure consensus building that can lead to more effective outcomes. So in a nutshell, most elements are there. Something not mentioned is is the gender equality and non-discrimination, which could be an opportunity to increase female participation and skill enhancement. A stronger focus on a sectoral approach that can pinpoint specific productivity issues to facilitate wage increases in determined sectors. And finding what are the right incentives that we will follow up on the monitoring and how we can link this policy to wage setting institutions like the minimum wage through the National Wage Consultative Council, and collective bargaining could further ensure that wage setting practices are informed by both tripartite and bipartite social dialogue. Hope that is clear.
Yes, absolutely clear, Xavier. And I'd like to pick up on a couple of the points that you made there. In particular, the fact that when we're looking at a more inclusive approach, I just wanted your thoughts on whether you feel it is a good start that we're having the pilot project rollout first, which will only involve 1,000 or so companies looking at a progressive wage policy. How soon would the ILO perhaps recommend that we upscale this to perhaps cover not just Peninsular Malaysia, but also, of course, Sabah and Sarawak? The whole country, in fact, and not just 1,000 selected companies?
Yes, thank you, Tamina. I think this is crucial. Inclusivity is essential for decent work to take place on an even playing field. And for this to happen, it's necessary to foster a more inclusive approach. The policy is targeted for workers that are from the 1,500 ringgit to the 4,999. Which is quite correct, where there is the stagnation of wages that have happened. But it is important to address that even larger companies, because this is also targeted only to SMEs, micro and small and medium enterprises, also larger companies may have occupations with lower paid wages. So I think all this process in the inception phase should analyze how we keep on integrating more workers into these in very important initiatives, and not only maybe small enterprises, but also looking up to the larger ones to promote what ILO says, equal remuneration for work of equal value. So all these elements obviously need to be addressed, but of course this is a process, and I understand this sandbox approach is the opportunity to sharp tune some of these elements. This is a very innovative instrument, maybe taken from the Singapore model, but it'll have to take time, as I say, addressing social dialogue, at a sectoral basis, tripartite mechanisms could ensure that this inclusive mechanism is further enhanced.
Indeed. Thanks very much. Moving along to another area, Xavier. Now, we can also see that some employers or sectors, of course, in Malaysia have preferred to hire migrant workers, which also keeps wages low. Well, therefore suggesting a connection to the current minimum wage versus the living wage agenda. Xavier, now what other policies are integral in helping Malaysia recognize living wages?
That's a crucial question. Again, I think there is not an easy approach. We know that wage policies are a sensitive matter. Let me first go into the setting of adequate minimum wages. This is an essential mechanism to enhance decent living standards for workers and their families on one side, while at the same time ensuring the sustainability of enterprises that create jobs for those workers. So it is a principle in wage setting to address both the needs of the workers and their families and economic factors. If we were only to address the needs maybe envisaged in a living wage value or estimate, this may result in wages that are above the capacity to pay of many enterprises, leading maybe to job losses, higher informality, reduced direct investment. Conversely, focusing only on certain economic factors, such as export competitiveness, might do the opposite, result in very unduly low wages, working poverty, stagnation of wages, and aggregate demand. So it's really important to strengthen and empower wage-setting institutions to assess if wages are sufficient to cover the needs of the workers and the families, as well as the adequacy in the light of the capacity to pay for different enterprises in different localities. Among other measures to recognize living wages, of course, is the use of data-driven approaches. Using robust data and statistics will be essential for evidence-based wage setting and also the periodic adjustments of living wages. Living wage estimates, along with economic data, can better inform wage setting practices and institutions to reflect these realities, both of workers' needs and economic realities. Therefore, the strengthening of the National Wage Consultative Council is something that still needs to be carried out. Since 2011, I think there's a very important strides in this aspect, but also looking at collective bargaining as a particular wage-setting institution that serves as a platform for bipartite social dialogue, facilitating to operationalize living wages by considering local, regional, and sectoral realities. So encouraging and supporting collective bargaining, which is something that we've not mentioned, may ensure a fair distribution of gains along the global supply chains, empowering workers and their representatives to negotiate better wages collectively, helps establish more adequate compensation levels, both at the floor level and beyond. And of course, other measures that are clearly stated in the progressive wage policy is to enhance productivity, the main driver to increase higher wages. Also formalizing the informal economy. We still find there are levels of even workers paid below the minimum wage, and identify root causes for low pay. So all these aspects, all these policies and measures can definitely contribute to close the gap between the minimum and the living wage.
Yes. Thank you very much indeed, Xavier. I think those were some extremely succinct insights, and I'd also once again like to just quickly highlight that the ILO has also formally agreed on a definition for a living wage as of just last month. Thank you so very much, Xavier. Your insights were succinct and very much on point. We take a quick break now and we'll be right back with the rest of Niaga Spotlight. Don't go anywhere.
Terdapat sedikit kebimbangan berkaitan dengan peningkatan kos sara hidup dan juga bagaimana untuk orang ramai mengimbangi peningkatan kos itu dengan perbelanjaan hari raya nanti. Sepanjang bulan Ramadan nanti, cuaca dijangka panas kering sepanjang 30 hari berkenaan.
Peniaga makanan di Bazar Ramadan dinasihatkan supaya jujur dalam menyediakan makanan, terutamanya dari sudut kualiti dan penjagaan makanan.
Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim is confident that the Malaysian economy will achieve stronger growth between 4 to 5% in 2024.
Among Palestine's top two officials were jointly charged with 161 counts of money laundering, criminal breach of trust and cheating.
Malaysia will experience drier and hotter weather due to prolonged lack of rain in the final phase of the northeast monsoon.
Welcome back. Still with me, Nina Rozman. Today on Niaga Spotlight, we're focusing on Labor Day 2024. Now, moving along, we delve deeper into the need for ensuring living wages. It's also equally important to ensure the welfare of gig workers who entail 4 million workers out of Malaysia's total 15.1 million, which is basically 26.27% of the working population. This points to the need for either a Gig Workers Act or recognizing gig workers under the Employment Act 1955. Moreover, DOSM data shows a sharp increase in the gig economy, which accounted for 30% of Malaysia's GDP by 2020, a significant jump from 18.5% of GDP in 2018. Also, the exploitative nature of remuneration for government contract workers, particularly frontliners such as hospital cleaners and security guards, is another key area. To discuss this and more, I spoke with Sivaranjani Manikam, Workers Bureau Head with Party Socialist Malaysia, PSM. Let's watch.
Hi, Jani. Good morning. Thank you so much for making time for Niaga Spotlight. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Jani, so the May 1st Secretariat, which is comprising grassroots labour organisation led by PSM, Party Socialist Malaysia, is calling for living wages on Labor Day 2024. Let's start, Jani, by you helping us to define the concept of a living wage.
Thank you so much. Such a significant question at this point of time. If you see, for this Labor Day event, our theme for the Labor Day is the demanding for living wage. Because if you see, like our current, the only wage policy that we have now is the minimum wage, which we think the minimum wage is not up to the standard of living wage. Because the minimum wage of 1,500, it's also below than the poverty line in the country. So you see the poverty line, poverty income, like a poverty line income is 2,589. And this was mentioned by the government themselves. So what they are trying to tell, to the people is like anyone who fall below this, they are considered poor and they are not unable to meet their ends at the end of the day. So when you say your below poverty line income is 2,589, how can you set a minimum wage line in the 1,500? So that's where we come to the issue of like, this is like minimum wage and still making the workers poor. So it's time for us to demand for a living wage that a person could able to get food and also like meet the basic needs like food, education, and healthcare, and these are the basic needs that they can like fulfill. And to fulfill that, the minimum wage is definitely not sufficient. There's only two things. Either the government is the time for review the minimum wage now, so the review should be upscale the standard to the living wage, or there should be another level of policy for the because when we say minimum wage is like the wage that we set for the market, like any employer should not pay a worker minimum than this. That doesn't give the definition of, okay, with this wage, a worker can going to live a minimum standard life in the society.
Exactly.
So that's the
for that, Jani, because actually what comes out from our first Q of 2023 statistics is that 47% of Malaysia's workers are actually earning below this poverty line of 2,589 ringgit. And another thing also is, as you pointed out, it is time. And it is time indeed, because according to the National Wages Consultative Council Act of 2011, there's actually a provision for minimum wages to be reviewed once every 2 years. So this minimum wage policy came in force after the May 2022 review. Here we are once again in May 2024. It's time indeed. Thank you, Jani. From there, Jani, I want to move into asking you, how can establishing a Gig Workers Act ensure welfare of 4 million workers out of Malaysia's total 15.1 million workers who participate in the gig economy? That's almost 27% of our working population.
Yes, actually, gig workers are something like a very growing sector, I would say, because more and more people wanted to be like flexible working arrangements, and they choose to become like a gig workers. And what is the problem when you become a gig worker? There is no law and there is no protection. What's going to happen? Because there was a terms called, they were like sharing the same platform, so they are shareholders. But in actual term, they are not as shareholders or anything, because they do not share any like a profit. So at the end of the day, they're just taking back their income. So we are thinking like any laws. I mean, initially we thought gig workers, that there could be some level of amendments in the Employment Act to accommodate, to protect the gig workers. But however, we also feel a separate law for the gig workers will definitely give a good, we will welcome that, because it will give some level of like a protection to this group of workers. And they are having like on the day-to-day like lots of issues, you know, and even PSM, we do receive a lot of complaints from the gig workers. They were being easily like terminated. They have been easily like every day they have like issues of like their charges, the service charges is like keep very low, and then there will be like the gig workers will be like protesting, but there will be nothing is there to protect them, or there's no law in the country to protect them. So we really welcome to have some kind of laws to protect this gig workers.
Mm-hmm.
And
absolutely.
Definitely we can take like some other countries, you know, like they are now talking about the laws, and also there is some level of like guidelines already been established for gig workers in Australia, Germany, Netherlands, Spain, and so many other countries, you know. So I think Malaysia should move forward to that direction, because we are one of the countries that can see like our biggest workforce in the gig economy.
And thank you very much for that, Jani. Definitely the emphasis on consistent complaints that have come out from gig workers. For example, those who are working in ride delivery. It's even gone down to as low as even them earning 20 cents per package delivered. And that combined with the risk of course, running motorcycles at top speed to try and make your quota, and all of those issues. Thank you. Jani, from there, I want to go into talking about Malaysia's regular migrant workers population. Now, our DOSM 2022 statistics, Jani, they show us that 12.9% of Malaysia's total employment entails regular migrant workers. So what are the parameters for adequate migrant workers' labor rights and protection? Just the basics.
See, like, we are in a very chronic situation, you know, when we talk about migrant workers in a country. I feel like it's like quite in a dangerous situation, because usually the employers are using migrant workers' existence to make it the benefit, and the wages are low, even for the workers population. So, and PSM, we are saying there's a need for the more working population, workforce. That's why the migrant workers needs comes here. But are they really like done a real assessment when they bring in the migrant workers into the country? Because we, PSM, together with other NGOs in a right to redress pollution, we came up with a comprehensive policy for the government to follow when they wanted to come up with the idea of like bringing more migrant workers into the country, what are the areas that they need to give attention? So this is like a proposal that we also made to the ministry. And also we felt like when we talk about the migrant workers population, there's another issue is like currently we have like two ministries are involved in managing and handling the migrant workers issue, and that makes the problems more deeper. So we are asking like maybe there should be one ministry should be in charge for all this like managing the migrant workers, and that is like a human resource ministry. And also we shouldn't forget that like there was some report made by under the Hishamuddin the independent report. We should look into that report because there was a lot of suggestions was given how do we can manage the migrant workers in Malaysia. So that also like another thing, like, and we also see a lot of migrant workers in these countries are also like in the 3D sectors, and we always like some people they take blames like because local workers are not interested to work in 3D jobs. That's why there is a need of migrant workers. I think here we need to understand the biggest problem is the wages in the 3D sectors are so low. And that's one of the reasons why our Malaysian workers do not show any interest to work here, but rather they are going to all the way to Singapore, to work as a migrant workers in the 3D jobs there. So what is the problem? So we need to identify this problem, the wage issue. So these are the dangerous, difficult and tasks which you really need to look into, like the wage to be higher so that you can retain the workers. You can even get local workers to do the job. You might not end up like getting like more migrant workers into the country. So that's how also we are thinking like the wage issue need to be tackled. When you keep the wage, and you keep the wage lower, and then you get the migrant workers, and you victimize them. End of the day, it's not that the country is taking care. They are not country is not taking care of the welfare of the migrant workers. Most of the employees are they happy to bring migrant workers because they can pay them lesser, and always make them as a threat. Yeah, they can make them as a threat to the local workers. So the local workers' voice is automatically lower.
Jani, moving along from there into one final area of discussion, let's talk about government contract workers such as hospital sanitation workers, security personnel. Also, roughly 90% of these are women. Now, what are some of the most pressing issues which the Government Contract Workers Alliance, the JPKK, is facing and continues to face?
I think the biggest problem is like, of course, the wages. The wages will never grow. You see, imagine every worker, this government contract workers, their contracts are very short term. I mean, 3 years once. These workers, they will have a new employer every 3 years once. And the wages are stagnant. There's no way of like every contractors come in and increase the wages. So the second issue, we see like a massive exploitation is happening in the sector for women. And they were facing like a lot of like a deduction from their salary. Their salary is only like 1,500. They're earning like a bare minimum salary. And from there, there's also a lot of deduction. And also like every like a cleaner, if let's say they want to take like a sick leave or they need to be away from work for some days, they need to look for the replacement for their work, and they need to pay in advance to that workers. So it's like a very like it's the level of like the exploitation is to that level. They need to do all these things to make sure they can go on the leave. And also like many of the women workers in this sector also suffering like they couldn't get like a maternity leave. Maternity paid leave. That means you can go on maternity, but you will not be paid because your place will be replaced by another woman. So the women need to be paid. So most of the time, the contractors doesn't want to pay for the maternity leave for the workers. And we also like this is like the people that I'm saying is like working in the cleaning sector, and also women who are working in the security sector. Okay, what are the problems they face? They face like they work like 30 days in a month. They work 365 days. There is no rest days. And this is the situation happening in the in the contract workers sector, mostly those who are working in the government buildings. If you go to any hospitals or schools, if you see the security guards, you can ask them, how many hours you're working? 12 hours every day. And they work all 7 days. There's no rest days. Though the law says a 1 day rest days is compulsory, but these workers are not enjoying those things. And also like every single things like they buy uniform, they buy shoe for the job. Everything will be deducted from the salary. It's not given by the employer. And also like if the same problem they face, they want to take a leave. There's no annual leave is given for first year. So whenever you want to take leave, you have to pay someone to get in someone. You have to find the replacement. It's not the employee's responsibility.
Thank you. Sivaranjani Manikam, Workers Bureau Head with Party Socialist Malaysia, PSM. Jani, thank you once again. I think you have helped to shed a light on quite a few critical issues that are impacting mostly invisibilized Malaysian workers. Really appreciate your taking the time to come on Niaga Spotlight. Thank you, Jani.
Thank you so much again.
Pasukan gergasi telah bersedia sepenuhnya. JDT dan Selangor bertembung di atas padang keramat sepenuh jiwa. Sokongan membara sepenuhnya dinantikan. Membakar semangat untuk marah sepenuhnya. Sokonglah sepenuhnya demi Liga kita. Piala Sumbangsi 2024 secara langsung di Astro Arena Bola dan Astro Go untuk semua pelanggan Astro.
Welcome back to Niaga Spotlight. Still with me, Tamina Kausji. We now shift the Labour Day 2024 focus to East Malaysia, where labour laws lag 19 years behind compared to West Malaysia. Now, the proposed amendments to Sabah and Sarawak's labour ordinances are expected to be tabled in the next Parliament sitting scheduled for June 24th to July 18th. Meanwhile, East Malaysians do not yet enjoy updated maternity nor paternity leave, or even better protections against discrimination and sexual harassment at work. Trade unions' capacity building is another essential area to provide more bargaining power for workers. We discuss all this and Borneo-centric narratives with Andrew Lowe, Deputy President of the Labour Law Reform Coalition, LLRC. Let's watch.
Andrew, good morning. Thanks so much for making time to join me on Niaga Spotlight.
Very good morning.
Andrew, so let's get started off. Now, in LLRC's view, what are some of the outstanding issues regarding the Sabah and Sarawak Labour Ordinance, or the SLO, especially as you know, we have just gone past Labour Day 2024?
Yeah, I think to answer that, we have to go a little bit of historical perspective. I think the Sarawak Labour Ordinance, SLO for short, was first enacted in 1955, 70 years ago. And the disappointment was it was only amended once in 2005. And since then, there's not been any amendment at all. In the meantime, Employment Act, which is the effective law in West Malaysia, has been amended on a continuous basis, and the latest was in 2021. In 2012, there was also an early amendment to the EA. So as you know, there have been very progressive amendments as far as employment is concerned, which applies to West Malaysia. But Sarawak Labour Ordinance, and similarly the Sabah Labour Ordinance, has never been amended since 2005. So as we move into the digital age and the modern economy, it's very sad that the labour law in Sabah and Sarawak has not catch up. Now, in terms of the issues, of course, this is in two parts. One is the monetary issues. Many said that now, as of now, the number of working hours, maximum working hours in the EA is now 45. The Sarawak Labour Ordinance received 48. And more importantly, in terms of gender equality, maternity leave, right, in Sarawak now is only 60 days. The amended EA, 98 days. So there's a substantial difference, right, over 38 days. And the EA also introduced a very, very progressive model, paternity leave. This recognize the role that husbands and fathers play in the upbringing of the child. These are not in the SLO as of now. The other major part was also in the EA, the threshold, right, is now 4,000. In the SLO, it's just 2,000. The law as it stands only covers up to those who earning 4,000 and below, if you are non-manual workers in Sarawak. That limit is as low as of 2,000. And the other part, I think, which is also important, not monetary, is in the Employment Act since 2012. There is a provision on the code of conduct for prevention of sexual harassment at the workplace. This provides guidelines, responsibilities, duties on employers to ensure that the workplace is safe. As you know, that the majority of sexual harassment is male against female. So this is very issue which our female colleagues feel very strong about. How do you have in one country, in one part you have protection, and another part no. One last point on this is.
Thanks very much for giving us the brief overview, Andrew. And I want to go a little bit deeper now into after you have told us some of the major areas where, of course, we need Sabah and Sarawak to also catch up to Peninsula. What do you feel is causing the delay in amending such essential provisions for the SLO overall?
In a nutshell, and to be very frank, I think it's politics. Nothing more than that. It's politics. There is this power play between the state government of Sarawak and the federal government. And the state government has come out openly in public to say that one of the reasons why they unable to agree to the SLO being tabled in Parliament was they insist on a consultation clause. What essentially they say is, okay, we agree to what is going to be amended to be the same as the EA, but for future amendment, we want a clause to be inserted to say, right, before you amend it, meaning federal Parliament amended, you must consult with the state government. So that debate on that issue alone has taken since 2021, 2 years at least. Right, Employment Act was amended and then implemented on 1st of January 2022, and they're still discussing on a consultation clause. So I think that is the main cause of the delay, as publicly acknowledged by the state government on this point. Of course, we disagree with that reason, but the reason for that delay is because they want a consultation clause.
Interesting. And yes, of course, then the Human Resources Ministry in Putrajaya and Parliament do have the final decision. So definitely the only way forward and for it to happen fast enough would be for the SLO amendment to be tabled in Parliament together with similar amendments to SLO in the next parliamentary sitting, which is quite soon. Thanks, Andrew. Now, moving forward, so how will amending the SLO swiftly and also importantly enough, retroactively benefit Sabahans and Sarawakians?
Well, our calculation shows that for every year of delay, when you calculate the number of working hours that is lost, the paternity and maternity leave, and also because the new act would increase the threshold for those who are eligible for overtime payment, our figures work out to be more than 200 million a year. So this is what workers in Sarawak alone, I do not have the figures for Sabah. This is what workers have been losing for each year that the SO is not amended and not implemented. So I think it's very urgent, and they should, to be fair to workers who have lost out, that when the amendment it should apply backdated to the same date as what the Employment Act is implemented. That's 1st of January 2022. So I think that should be the first step.
Absolutely, and I hear you on that. I also refer to the fact that State Premier Abang Johari has also made the statement that basically median household income, both rural urban areas in Sarawak, is been increasing. But at the same time, if this were to come in force, imagine how much quicker the state would be on the right track to becoming a higher income state, perhaps even before.
Precisely. I agree with you. See, one of the, we can talk about dollars and cents, but I think one of very important as we move into the digital age, and we share the Sarawak government vision to propel the economy forward. See, one of the very key principle in the amended EA is on flexi working arrangement. As you know that the way that the world evolved now, 9 to 5 job is not the common now. So there are provisions in the Employment Act, right, to allow for flexible working arrangement. That, in our view, will increase, number one, labor reproductivity, and that should benefit everyone. It should benefit employers. It should benefit employees in terms of work-life balances, and it should benefit rights as a whole. And it will attract foreign investment, especially those who are very progressive. We certainly want foreign investors who are very, very progressive, modern, that can actually contribute to the right to set right in the country.
That's right. And also making note of the fact that the NIMP, New Industrial Master Plan 2030, 12 Malaysia Plan also aims to increase worker share from 30 ringgit to 40 ringgit per 100 ringgit earned by 2025. We cannot be leaving Sabah Sarawak behind. One last area like to ask you about, Andrew. On a different note now, a slightly different one. The Trade Union Amendments Bill 2023 is also yet to be implemented for Sabah and Sarawak. Tell us more about this, including impact on trade unions and capacity building.
Okay. Just a small point of correction. It's not implemented throughout the whole country yet. It was amended, passed in Parliament, but it's not implemented throughout the whole country yet because of one controversial, but in my view, very, very progressive principle of the amendment is on this freedom of association. See, one of the, I will be the first to admit it, trade unions in Malaysia is not very effective. It's not progressive, and the simple fact is less than 6% of our total workforce are members of the union. And one of the main reasons of this is because currently, as of now, there's no freedom of the association. So people cannot choose any union they like. They must choose a particular union as mandated by law. And I think you and I know that if people don't have a choice, most of them don't choose. And that's one of the reasons why they don't choose to be in the union. Because the union that they are forced to go in may not be what they like. So the amendments has been done after a long session. We are waiting for the Human Resource Minister to set a date to implement it. And the earlier they do it, the better, because it will allow unions to be more progressive, to be more responsible. It will encourage, in our view, more workers to join, and that will lead to greater trade union capacity, and then they can contribute to a very healthy debate, consensus building between employers, government, and workers. And I think that's also very, very important.
However, at the same time, though, how would you respond, Andrew, to some concerns that have been brought up by union leaders or, of course, existing unions who say that multiple groups are going to split worker unity and perhaps even inadequate experience and knowledge, those folks forming unions, ultimately making them ineffective? What do you respond to the fact that, well, there are going to be, in a sense, growing pains, but can we afford those kind of growing pains in a medium-sized economy like Malaysia?
Well, let me put it this way, all right? The fact is, again, as I mentioned just now, only 6% of workers are in a union. And why are we worried about losing some of the 6% when there are 94% opportunity, 94% potential workers who can join union? Yes, I understand that certain leaders are worried because if freedom of association comes in, there could be new unions are formed that can challenge them. So some are worried about losing their own positions. But you look at overall, you look at countries that actually developed this, that actually implemented this, right? Growing pains, everything there's a growing pain. So it's how, instead of worrying about a small piece of the cake, there's a huge potential, all right? And we LRC believe that that we have to look at the positive, and the positive far outweigh negative, right? Having more unions means more competition, and we want to compete So the best unions would then be able to provide better service and facilities and opportunities to millions of workers outside there who are currently without a union. And this is one reason where our wages are very low, right? As you mentioned just now, less than 40% of our country GDP is on wages. That is well below what our country should have. It should be hitting about 55%. We are currently at 34.6, if my figures are not wrong. And that will actually tell us, right? Look at the facts. Look at the very objective, bare facts. And while I understand that some union leaders are concerned, I think our mandate, right, is not on union leaders. Our mandate is on the millions of workers, Malaysians, right, who should have better representation than what they do have now. Of course, as a union leader, I'm worried I may lose my job if a better union comes along. But is the amendment about me or about workers?
100%. Andrew, thanks very much for your time. And I think the numbers are definitely in your favor. 94% of workers not unionized. And also for the broader perspectives that you shared with us, particularly in regards to Sabah and Sarawak. Pleasure having you on the Young Spotlight.
Thank you. Thank you so much.